Hey guys, welcome back to my series called Introducing. Today is a special episode. Today I'm leaving my comfort zone of Western classical music and we are heading east. Today we're going to learn about the Arabic Oud. So I am fascinated by the oud for a number of reasons, but mainly because the oud is the ancestor of the European lute. That European lute, by the 15th century, would fully blossom and become one of the most important instruments of the musical period we call the Renaissance. So in 711, the Moors, who were the inhabitants of northwest Africa of the time, they decided to invade Spain. And when they did, they brought with them the oud. In the Arabic world, the oud was commonly referred to as the king or the sultan of all instruments. And in fact, oud or al-oud in Arabic simply means from wood. So, it's an instrument made of wood. The oud is a likely descendant of an ancient instrument called the barbat, which was a Persian instrument dated back to something like 3,500 years ago. Now, the earliest form of the oud would have just 4 strings made of gut, sheep intestine, right? And over time, over the centuries, they added more and more strings until nowadays the common stringing for an oud is 11 strings, and that's 5 doubled strings tuned in unisons, and then 1 low string which is single. So for the tuning, we have C, 2 Fs, 2 As, 2 Ds, 2 Gs, and 2 Cs. So notice all the strings are tuned in fourths, perfect fourths, except for the F to the A, which is a major third. So this instrument is played with a plectrum, or a pick, right? And this is called a risha, which just means feather. And that's because the original plectrums for this instrument would have likely been an eagle's quill. But today, often players just use plastic or a wood, like a piece of bamboo. All ouds are pear-shaped on the soundboard, and they typically have 3 sound holes. Sometimes they are full of incredibly beautiful ornate decoration. The back of the instrument is always bowl-shaped, and this is made up of individual strips of wood called ribs, usually made of a hardwood, which are heated up and bent and glued together to make this gorgeous shape here, which also gives the instrument its characteristic tone. Then on top here we have a bent backwards peg box, which is quite beautiful, and we have friction pegs, just like a violin. These pegs you just push in and turn, and that's what holds the notes at pitch. The most interesting and distinguishing part of this instrument for me as a fretted player is that this doesn't have any frets. This is a fretless instrument. Now at first it seems a bit daunting not to have frets. However, it has its advantages. For example, I can slide between notes, right? I have no frets in the way, so I have infinite gradations between each note, and when I play a melody, instead of playing 3 distinct pitches all the time, I can, for example, slide between them, which is, if you listen to the music, very characteristic of that sound. In the beginning of this video, I played a Turkish song called Üsküdar'a Giderken, and the simple melody just sounds like this. But I was utilizing a lot of those ornamental slides to make the song sound more vocal, and in fact oud players are often meant to improvise over the melodies to make them more interesting. So I came up with Another reason this instrument is fretless is in order to play correctly all of the varieties of maqams. And a maqam is simply a scale. there are roughly something like 100 regularly used maqams in Arabic music. And when you compare that to basically the 7 church modes that we use in Western classical music, maybe plus the chromatic scale and the whole tone scale, it's pretty impressive. Okay, so let's hear some of these maqams. The easiest one for me to wrap my head around is called Nahawand, and that's basically the Aeolian mode, which is just the minor scale. So in D, it would be D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C, D. And that's actually the same scale I was using for the Turkish tune Üsküdar'a Giderken. And another maqam that I found pretty relatable is called Kurd, and that's basically the Phrygian mode. So it's the same as the natural minor scale, the Nahawand maqam, except there's an E flat, which makes it Phrygian. So we have D, E flat, F, G, A, B flat, C, D. Now here's where things get complicated, especially for me as a complete newbie to the oud and Arabic music in general. So depending on which maqam you're using, you might have to use microtones, microtones that exist in between the Western semitone. The Western scale is basically an octave, it's like C to C, divided up into 12 half steps or semitones. Each semitone is like one key on the piano or one fret on the guitar. But in Arabic music, certain maqams use notes in between those Western semitones. So for example, if we take A, and then we use B flat, that's about a Western semitone. A B half flat would be sharp, so something around there. And apparently depending on which region you're from, that'll determine just how sharp or flat that semitone is. And I find that to be just so cool. It's so challenging to my ear because it just sounds out of tune, because I'm only used to playing in the Western parameters. But if we hear it in context, we can start to understand why that can add some interesting flavor to the music. So here's the normal B flat. And now the B half flat. It actually makes a lot of sense to me now. When I hear it in context, it doesn't sound out of tune, it just sounds kind of like a different emotional affect. My favorite maqam that I've found so far is called the Hijaz, and basically that is D, E half flat, somewhere around there, so it's like, again, like a sharp E flat, F sharp, G, A, B half flat, C, D. When I first heard that scale, I thought it kind of reminded me of that theme from Pulp Fiction, you know? If I decided to take this instrument seriously and study it, one of the challenges would be memorizing a long list of maqams and then being able to endlessly improvise over any of them. This is another beautiful piece called Hafaween. It uses the Nahawand maqam, which again is basically Aeolian. So, bringing us into the 21st century, the oud is no longer just an Arabic instrument. It comes in many shapes and sizes and is played all around the world in many different musical styles. It's such a beautiful, versatile instrument. And if you are as fascinated about this instrument and its music as I am, I would strongly suggest that you listen to some real oud players. I am just a beginner on this instrument. I have officially taken one oud lesson, but I have just scratched the surface of the capabilities of this instrument. If you want to hear what this beautiful instrument can really do, I suggest you listen to some of the great oud players of the world. My favorite right now is a Tunisian oud player named Anor Brahem. There's also this fantastic Iraqi oud player named Nasir Shama. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed learning a bit about the oud today with me. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to this channel, and if you hit the bell notification, you'll get an email when I release my next video of my introducing series. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.